Hi everyone, for our vlog today, we'll be talking about my Rephr number 30 brush. Take a look at that. Now, I've actually had this for the past few months now, and I think it's just high time for me to talk to you guys about my experience using this brush, and of course with the products I like to use it with. And I think it's just also good timing because it is September, and if you are a foodie lover like I am, you know that September is when the brush festival is celebrated in Kumano, Hiroshima, Japan. So this is one way of actually celebrating the brushes that we actually love. Okay, so for our video, we'll be talking about this brush individually, and of course I'll do some comparisons and a demo on how I will use this. Okay, right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my camera over and let's talk about this brush as it is. So the Rephr number 30 brush has a design which is very typical of a Rephr brush. We have a black ferrule here, and we also have a black handle, and the name Rephr is stamped here on one side, and the number or the name of the brush is stamped on the other. So on this stamp, it's actually the number 30. And the bristles of this brush is made of goat hair. Now, I just don't know what type of goat hair is used in this brush head because it's not stated on the Rephr website. So basing on touch alone, I think it uses a different mix. They use different types of goat hair bristles to make their brush heads, and I think that's also the same case with their eyeshadow brushes, as I've said before, I believe. So the brush head here is still very soft. If you guys can see how it dances here on my palms, take a look at that. And of course it's still very, very airy. Nice snap back into shape. Fantastic. And the brush head design here is actually rounded. Take a look at that. I love rounded brush head shapes, and this I truly appreciate. And of course in terms of softness, as I said earlier, it's actually quite soft. But you can actually see here that there's a slight bounce, and I can actually feel strength at the core of the brush head here. Look at that, see? So for sure this part of the brush will pick up product, and the outer bristles will actually help you to buff that product out. And if we just press it further to add more pressure, you can see the splaying power of this brush head. So it can actually really encompass a very large real estate on the face. So as you guys can see, when I'm just doing that on my face right now, you can see the resistance in the core, or in the middle of the brush head here, and just the way it softly opens itself into my skin. Look at that. Now I cannot feel any prickling sensation at all with this brush, even if I use it in this position, but I can feel some texture in some parts of the bristles here. So I think I don't know if they use a mix of Sokoho goat hair here or Hakototsuho and some Saikoho, because it's so unbelievably soft. But I can say that in touch alone, if you have very sensitive skin, this brush is not for you, because you might just feel a little bit of some sensation on your skin because of the texture of some of the bristles used in this brush head. Okay, but if you're someone like me who has oily skin, or normal to combo skin, this is actually perfect for you to use as well, because it will not pick up all of the oils on your skin, and it will not sorry, there's a bristle there, and it's not going to clump up, and it's not going to affect the way that you actually apply products on the face. So the length of the brush head here is 15 millimeters, so it's actually quite a long brush head. And at least in me saying that, I hope it will give you an idea of what you can use it with, and if you think that this brush will work for you and your makeup sentiments. Okay, now the reason why I bought my Rephr number 30 brush is because I wanted to have a brush that was similar to one of the brushes that I purchased from Hakuhodo. It was actually a limited edition brush, and it was actually their powder brush from their chocolate set. So as you guys can see here, if I put these two brushes side by side, you guys can see that the brush heads share a very similar shape. The Hakuhodo powder brush here from the chocolate set is around 45 millimeters, so it's a little bit shorter. It's a tad shorter than the Rephr number 30 brush here. But one thing though I do have to say is that the Hakuhodo powder brush here is actually very soft. It feels very silky because after all, the brush head here is made of 100% Psycho goat hair. And I'm so amazed on how well this brush head still really retains its shape after all these years, despite on how soft and silky and airy the brush head actually is. Now, if you had sensitive skin, this brush would have been perfect for you, but unfortunately, this is no longer in the market. All right. So now, in terms of comparison, if I press both of the brush heads together, you can actually see that they almost share the same diameter, especially when they fully splay out. But then again, I believe that the Hakuhodo brush here is just because of the softness of the bristles, it's actually really overextending. It's blooming in comparison to the number 30 brush here from Rephr. So in just doing this activity alone, I could say that this Hakuhodo powder brush, I could use this if I just want to apply a very light hint of color on the face, may it be finishing powders or bronzers, because the bristles here are very soft. It won't pick up a ton of color from the pan. It will also not deliver a ton of color into the face. But if I just want to add a much more not overly intense, but a much more visible application of color or powder, I would actually use the Rephr number 30 because basing on experience and of course the characteristics of the bristles of the Rephr number 30, this will pick up more product than the Hakuhodo powder brush from the chocolate set. Okay, all right, now the other brush that I could compare this to is actually the Hakuhodo Mizubake. Now, I could say that they almost share the same characteristics with bristle type and bristle mix, I think. But I could say that just by touch alone, the Hakuhodo Mizubake here has a much more coarser feel. But if you take a look at the bristles of the Mizubake here, it's still very soft, nice snap back into position, and it keeps its shape amazingly well. And the reason why they might be using Sokoho goat hairs for this brush, or even Hakototsuho goat hair, is because Mizubakes are used to apply traditional Japanese makeup that is water based. So you really need strong bristles in brush to spread out and apply those types of products. So in terms of feel, I think you guys can see on how strong the core is of the Mizubake here, wherein you have a tremendous bounce of the brush head and you actually need to exert more effort or more pressure just to splay out the brush head here. So this brush actually is amazing for buffing products into the face, but if you have very sensitive skin, you might really feel that buffing going on. Even for myself, I can already feel the strength of the brush head of the Mizubake and just the way that it just really spreads out product on the face. I think if I put all of these three brushes together, so the Mizubake here, the Rephr number 30 here in the middle, and the Hakuhodo powder brush here, it seems like the Rephr number 30 is smack in between these two brushes, wherein it's not too soft, but it's still quite resilient with strength in the core of the belly of this brush. Okay, right, so again, the core of this is actually very full. It's actually so amazing. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to apply a layer of foundation and some concealer because we'll be using a lot of powders today. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to apply some of this Estee Lauder, the Smoother Universal Perfecting Primer. And I have a little bit of that here on my palette. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of that here in the areas where I usually have texture. Now, by the way, everything is listed down on the description box, and even all the skincare that I used is also listed, okay? Alright. So it's actually the first time that I'm using this primer from Estee Lauder. I was just curious with it because I saw it for sale on a beauty website, and I said oh, let me try that. Okay, because I'm not someone who actually uses a lot of primers when I am working. So this is just my curiosity bringing out the best of me, and I just hope that it's gonna work with me today and we don't have any pilling whatsoever. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna spray a little bit of my Lisa Eldridge Skin and Makeup Enhancing Mist. Now this is just to help, like, prime my skin and also just to refresh my skin because it's very warm today, which I actually, truly appreciate because it has been raining for 2 weeks here. So I'm very, very happy with all the sun that we see today, and my laundry is also very happy. All right, and now for some foundation, my trusty Armani Luminous Silk. So I'm just going to be using this sheer buffer brush from Sonia G, and I'm just going to lightly add a nice thin layer of foundation all over. Not too much, just enough to actually even out my redness and just to make me look camera ready. And I'm quite happy that after I've applied the foundation and really started buffing it in, I'm not seeing the primer that I applied earlier actually pilling and being getting disturbed. So it's actually laying quite nicely on top of my skin. Too bad though that I have just discovered that this is no longer in production, so I might be saving this. So now what I want to do is I just want to cover up some blemishes that I have here, 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 and here. And I'm going to be using my trusty Secret Camouflage from Laura Mercier. And I'm going to apply this using this Rephr number 3 brush. Because it's a pencil type of a brush, and it's actually quite dense, and it's strong enough to actually pick up these very hard pressed cream products. And now for some concealer. This is my NARS soft matte concealer, and this is in the color Tiramisu, one of my most favorite colors to use at this time. Because it has a very nice neutral tone to it, but it's also a little bit beigey, so it has a hint of orange in it. So it kind of also it acts as a corrector, and it just really diminishes the appearance of the blueness in my under eye area. And I'm just lightly applying it here, and I am using my Rephr number 2 brush. Now when you're using the Rephr number 2 brush to pick up these types of products, you have to be very light-handed because the brush heads of this are actually very strong, and you'll pick up a ton of product, especially if you press it into the pan. Okay, so again, be very light-handed. Okay, now on the other side. And now I'm getting a lighter shade of my NARS Soft Matte Concealer, and this is in Custard. And I am using a Rephr number 28 brush for this. And I'm just going to apply it here and here, and sculpt it into my cheeks just to add some brightness in that area, just to really help to open that up and just to widen up that part of my face. Okay, fantastic. I like that. And now let's set the under eye area. Okay, so I'm going to be using my Voile Rose. This is the Givenchy Prism Lib powder. Now, I'm actually so glad that I managed to catch one before they got reformulated. I bought this from the Sephora Philippines website, by the way. I think I also bought one, but that one was already the reformulated powder, but it was in a different color. So I was actually quite surprised when I saw it was a little bit shimmery. And it was only recently that I realized it must have been the reformulated powder. But so far, I'm so glad that this Voile Rose that I got in the regular size is still the Prism Lib powder that we all love and adore. Look at that. Look how nice that is. It just sets my under eye area, also brightens everything, and just really neutralizes some of the green undertones of my skin. Now, the Rephr number 30 brush basically is a powder brush, okay? It's just a different type of a brush head design because, the traditional brush heads for, setting powders is, flat and round. And I don't have one here in front of me, so let me go get one for an example, which is like this, okay? And we put this here. Of course, it's very different. Brush head designs are very different because these types of brush heads, flat and round brush heads, you actually use this if you want to, of course, set your face with powder, but you always do it in in a patting motion. Okay, but the great thing about having rounded brush heads like this is that it can be more versatile, in my opinion, wherein, like, you can actually, like, for example, I'm just gonna put some of this, like, setting powder here on the cap, and then I'm gonna press the brush head into the cap, and then you can actually use this brush head and you can really, like, tap the powder, and then if you want to buff it out, you can just, like, use it in a buffing motion. That's what I love about, like, these rounded brush heads. That's why, like, if I have a rounded brush head for a blush brush, I'd always say, like, I'm loving it because it just really helps me to apply the product, press it in, and then as you guys can see, like, if I'm just, like, really pouncing the brush head into my skin, the outer edges or the outer bristles is already, like, helping me to blend out, like, the powder, and it's just really helping me do the job quite nicely. Now, even if I was actually able to use this brush for setting powder, if you're someone who needs more coverage with powders, this is not the brush for you. You need a much more denser brush, and I think you might need to settle and use a traditional type of brush head shape for setting powders, okay? Because this one is just too airy and too light, and that's why I actually prefer to use this with finishing powders most of the time, okay? All right, so let's move on to finishing powders now. So let me start first with, let's say, this Laura Mercier um, Real Flawless Powder. So this is in the color Translucent. And I'm just going to pick up some of the product on the brush head here, and I'm going to apply it in this portion. Now, the only problem, I think I've stated this earlier, is that the brush head is just too big, that you're actually not able to apply, like, powder in a very specific area on the face. Okay, but the great thing about this brush, because it's so big, it can just really help you to apply product in a very large real estate on the face, and you're also, like, able to apply it and blend it out in no time. But the other thing also I do have to say is that because, like, the brush head of this is very dense and very strong, and the bristles have some personality in it, it actually disturbs some of the cream products that you place on the skin. So that's just one thing that you have to remind yourself with, is that if you're using this, you might just need to retouch, like, some of your cream products, like concealers that you put on your face. And if you're using a brush like this, and if you're going to land on that area, just, tap it. Alright, so now I'm going to use my MAC Studio Fix Powder Foundation. This is an NC35, and with the Rephr number 30 brush, as you guys can see, it fits very well into the pan here. And you can repress it, and the entire brush head here picks up the product from the pan. And with a tapping motion, I'm just going to apply it all over my face. So as you guys can see, this part of my face now is a little bit matter in comparison to this part. But what I like about this is that it doesn't really apply a thick layer of powder on my skin, and the natural luminosity of my skin is still showing. Really love that. So this brush can really help you to apply a very nice even amount of powder, well balanced amount of powder as well, and it's not making me look cakey at all. But one thing that I do have to say though, it's that because of the bristle types that's used in creating this brush head, it actually, like, picks up more than the usual than, like, let's say a full-on Hakuhodo goat hair brush, because those brushes have very soft bristles, so it will actually, like, pick up a less amount of powder and to also deliver a less amount of powder on the face. Now, I don't think you can use this for blush application on the face, mainly because the brush head is just, like, way too big. But maybe depending on, like, your ability of how you actually, like, apply makeup, you might be able to control the way that you actually, like, hold the brush, and maybe just the way that you actually, like, apply a targeted approach of the blush. Maybe you might be able to do that. And for sure you will have a very nice diffuse amount of color on the face, but I just find it a little bit too big for that type of particular product. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we will try some Guerlain Meteorites. So I have the color here Warm, so this is the Doré, the number 3 Guerlain Meteorites powder. And what I love about the brush head of the Rephr number 30 is that it fits quite nicely into the tub here. And I'm just swirling the brush, and because of the size of the brush head of this, it actually fits perfectly onto it, and I don't see a lot of the powders flying out from the packaging. So at least I'm assured that all of the powder is actually on the tips of the bristles here. But as you guys can see, the tips of the bristles of this brush is still very soft because the pearls here inside is able to create indentation into it. Okay, so let's apply this finishing powder. And as you guys can see, it's actually going to apply a very nice diffuse amount of color. Also very well blended. Take a look at that. And also, when you're using this Rephr number 30 brush, you don't really need to work so hard when you're building intensity and coverage, because the bristles of this can really help you to do that in 2 swipes, I think, of the product. Because as a Hakuhodo hair brush, especially if it's this big and this long, in terms of length, you might have some trouble applying the right amount of layer in the less amount of time needed. Because with Hakuhodo hairs, I've noticed that you really need to build up slowly. Now, although naturally that's how I like to apply my makeup, but if you are in a rush, Rephr number 30 can really help you, go through that motions in no time. Okay, look at that. Very nice, even amount of application of the finishing powder. Very well blended, well buffed out. There's no concentration of micro glitters in a specific part of my face. Very well buffed out, very well blended, very nice and even. Still looks very natural, but my skin is looking a little bit oomph. Fantastic. I have here my baked bronzer from Laura Mercier, and this is the Matte Radiance Baked Bronzer. This is in 03, and let us apply this bronzer using this brush. Now, on a personal level, I find that this brush is just way too big for me to apply bronzer products. With bronzer, I like to bronzer, so I prefer smaller brush heads than this. But let me just show you guys on how well diffused this brush head actually blends out and delivers baked gelée bronzer formulas. Look how soft that is. But I'm also very careful on how I land the brush head on my skin. I make sure that the brush head, especially this portion here, I make sure that it lands on top of my cheekbones, and I buff it inward and upward. Look at that. Very nice. Well blended, very diffused. And let me also do that here. Let me get a little bit more. And let me buff the outer perimeters of my non-existent hairline and buff everything. Alright, so I believe we have come to the end of my vlog for today. So I hope that you guys found this useful and insightful, especially if you've been wondering what you can use the Rephr number 30 brush for. Okay, and I'm hoping that in me showing you how I use this with all of these powder products, it can give you an idea, and hopefully it can help you come to the conclusion if this will work for your makeup sentiments and also your makeup expression. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. Before I let you go though, let me just apply a hint of this Hourglass brow gel, because I just want to create some balance here on my brows before we finish this video. And what else? Oh yeah, so before I truly let you go, at around the time that I bought the number 30 powder brush from Rephr, I actually also bought their eyelash curler. So I have number 18, now this is number 20R, and this is number 18R, and they have been an amazing addition into my kit. Now the main difference between the 18R and the 20R is actually the way that they curve. So let me show you guys. So just take a look at that. I know it's very difficult to discern it from this position, but I do have to say that the number 20R has a much more wider and flatter kind of a curvature in the eye. So if that's your eye shape, then this is the best eyelash curler for you. But if you have a regular, curvature of your eye, then the 18R will actually work for you. Okay, I love this. And also one thing, by the way, I love the fact that they give out a bunch of replacement bands on these eyelash curlers, because sometimes it's very difficult to find this in the market, and for the price of this and extra bands, it's actually good value for money. Okay, so if you have any more questions about the Rephr number 30 brush, how I use it, or any other makeup products that I use today, please let me know down in the comments box and let's have a conversation about it. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye.